The Ship with Darren Smith, here on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
It's all fun and games till we get into the ring, and then you find out who's softer than Aquafina. If you can't stand the heat, stay away from my arena, cause all I bring is heat. You can call me jalapeno, keep my name out your mouth unless you're trying to sing. Accolades that you get from seeing a champion belt, trophy, your ring. If you gotta show your bling, then tune in to the ship where we talk about it, man. But if you tune in, you better know it's showtime. And every time you speak, man, he's gonna speak his mind. Keeping the straight facts while others they just assume we're keeping it 100 while faking there's no room. With the loudest interviews and the hottest guests, you done dealt with the rest, now roll with the best. But before I forget, let me get back to the script, introduce you to the host of the ship, Darren Smith.
Good morning and welcome to Ship here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Ship with Darren Smith. We are live this Sunday. Beautiful day that the Lord has made, special sports gods up above. With me as always is the man, the myth, the legend. They call him J Tug, Mr. Jordan Tug. Jordan, what's going on with you?
Hey, good morning, Darren. Good morning, Blake. Man, how's everyone doing out there?
Doing good, doing good. Of course, Blake Sneeder's keeping us on the air, spinning the tunes. Blake, morning to you.
Good morning, fellas. I know you always say I'm spinning the tunes, and I wish I was that cool as DJ, but really I'm just hitting the buttons. But if I could switch and scratch, I would, for sure.
You just got to take it. Just
the illusion.
It's the illusion, because remember, people, they can see you, I guess, because we're streaming. So
yeah, there you go.
Right. Also joining us from Oxnard, California, covering the Dallas Cowboys. He is the sports director for KOTV ABC7, my dear friend, Michael Coleman. Michael, what's the word?
What's going on, Mr. Suit? Got any, challenges or goals for the Suits this year?
No, not really.
You did a year ago.
Yeah, no, don't have any real challenges. Just trying to make sure that we get, obviously some new suits and stuff in store for this year. I talked to Todd actually just a few days ago, and he says he's got some ideas for me for this upcoming season. So we're waiting to see. Now for the preseason, just going to do the polo look. Not try to do too much right away. But when the season begins, yeah, we'll have something in store.
And good morning to Blake and Tuck. How you guys doing?
Hey, good. How's things going on out there in Cali?
It's going well, man. We missed each other Friday because of the schedule situation. But when you get out here, you're going to enjoy the weather. I promise you.
It sounds lovely out there.
So speaking of, look, we'll get to what Mike's been doing out in California and get to some Cowboy news soon enough. But of course, at the top of the hour, we'll be joined by Jeff Chadiha of the NFL Network. We'll get his thoughts on training camp. He was up in Kansas. He was up in St. Joe with me yesterday. Of course, he covers the NFL for the NFL Network and NFL.com. But first things first, yesterday at Chiefs training camp, offense looked pretty average yesterday. Wasn't one of the offense's best days. We spoke to Eric Bieniemy yesterday after the practice, and he says that if he had a grade between average, good, and great, he said they were average. I did ask him what's it take for him to see a team that is average, practices average, to be great. Talked about obviously being more sharp, being more focused. Not saying that they wasn't, in his opinion, but there was a lot of things that was off with the offense on yesterday. We got a chance to talk to Marquez and say I got the man's name correct. He's like, make sure you guys pronounce my name right. No, we got you, Marquez.
Right.
So even though when I said it like that, he smiled. So okay, got his name right. But when we spoke to him, he's been pretty impressed about what this team can do. What's very interesting though is that they have higher expectations, which I guess as a player, you should. They have higher expectations on what this offense can look like than even I initially did when I was at an OTA practice earlier this summer or the spring. And, I took a picture of the group of the wide receivers. Like, okay, I can see the potential that's there. And they have seen and they have shown some stuff throughout training camp thus far. And I was looking up the Chiefs stats over the last 15, close to 20 years. And I think twice they've been just a shade under. I think one year they were shade under like 20 yards from total of 7,000 yards of offense. For me, for this team to be successful, I think they actually have to hit that 7,000 mark barrier. Now, obviously, that means Patrick Mahomes throwing for about 5,000 yards. Now, of course, health and all that comes into play. But with the number of running backs that they have out there, you look at Pacheco, you look at McKinnon, who we spoke to as well yesterday. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who initially we thought, was going to go on the PUP list, but he's been, Andy said a few days ago that whatever he was dealing with, he passed his physical or whatever, so he was able to play or practice. And then, of course, Ronald Jones. When I asked Jerick McKinnon about that backfield, he said that they all bring something different, and because they're all shaped, their body sizes are different, it gives them different aspects to the running game that opposing teams may not be able to prepare for because you don't know which direction that the Chiefs are going to hit you from. Mm-hmm. And Jordan, I will say this. For me, I'm old school. I don't know. Maybe it's because of the Dallas Cowboy fan in me where I think that they're going to go back to 2016 Zeke, but also Emmitt Smith days. I think that for me, for this team to be successful, they need to have a greater balance of on the offensive side of football, where I think they need to rush for at least 19. Well, they rushed for they were 45 yards short, I think, last year, 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. So they were about 200 yards short last year. Mm-hmm. I think if they can somehow get to 2,000 yards rushing along with Patrick's passing, I think that will help them, because I think if they get a lead, they need to be able to run the football enough to kind of keep the other team's defense or offense on the sidelines.
Yeah, so let me ask you this, Darren. When you look at the Chiefs running game, do you think it's going to be more by committee, or would you prefer to have, quote unquote, the two guys that you can lean on? Because I feel like sometimes when you have too many
questions, going to be which ones do you lean on?
Exactly. Yeah. I have a lot of
just be honest. If there's a weakness, it's even called a weakness, that they have so many options that it's hard to say who I would want to see, because Pacheco was running with the first team some yesterday, but Andy's got this thing where they're rotating a lot of players. Of course, we know about the left tackle position, but they're rotating players, which I think is a good thing too, because again, next man up type thing, but also you build confidence for those younger players to, okay, I'm working with Patrick in the ones, my number could potentially be called, and if so, boom, I'm not going to be afraid of the bright lights. So I do, man, it's funny because I feel like I'm contradicting myself with every sentence, but I like the fact that they're doing it, because again, you do want to get them as much experience as possible. And if a situation comes up, because you have so many players, that if somebody goes down, they can come right in and not have any drop off in production.
Yeah, because I think the depth is going to be helpful, but I think what you mentioned earlier, Darren, is like there's a lot of different when it comes to like the running back games. We compare like McKinnon to Rojo and things like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how the running game plays out in Kansas City, because I think that the Chiefs want to become more balanced. And I think when you look at some of the losses that they had, not only last year, we go back to the 2020 Super Bowl, it was just like the run game being off of balance. That's what they missed from the championship year that they had in that Super Bowl versus the 49ers.
Mike, we talked to Trey Smith. I think it was Wednesday. We talked to Trey Smith, and one of the questions I asked him was about the physicality, and what type of identity that they want. Obviously, last year you brought in Joe Tooney, you brought in Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith in the draft. Those two, you got Orlando Brown in the trade, and then, of course, Lucas Niang. I mean, so you basically essentially had a whole new starting five offensive line. And one of the things that they wanted to make sure that they were able to do was to impose their will and impose some physicality against their defensive opponents. According to Trey Smith, Mike, same identity that they want to do this year, but they want to do it at a greater depth than what they did last year, which for me goes back to they kind of want to run the football a little bit more.
Well, and I think that'd be wise. I mean, that's one thing about the Mahomes era and Coach Reed is the running game has been average at best, because he really didn't have to do much because of everything else going on. You don't want your offense to be predictable, and you want to, and I think they got to. I mean, I know Chuck had asked, would you ask you if you rather be run by a committee or one guy, or that one guy, that guy, like it was during the Jamal Charles days. I'm like that guy, that I want that guy to be that person to run that rock, and you got the depth. There's no question about it. But I think you mix that run game in there, and you just continually on a consistent basis, you keep that defense off balance, because they're used to. I think when defensive coordinators strategize against the Chiefs, what they do is, how do we stop Mahomes? They don't talk about the running game. So I think you got to have that running game. I think now, because there's enough of Mahomes on tape. Not that they ever stopped him, they may have slowed him down, but you got to have that other element, I believe, in this offense, and they got the studs. There's no mistake about it from what I understand. They got the guys to be able to do it. So I would like to see one of those running backs stand out and be the guy and be able to contribute to that passing game as also a receiver. Keep that defense off balance.
When I look at the group of running backs, I swear, look, I fall in love with the 2018 Chiefs so bad because they had such a great balance before that tape came out with Kareem Hunt. And I mean, and I tell people, man, everybody, wants to say that Buffalo and Kansas City game was the greatest game that was ever played last year. I'm like, no, it really wasn't. I mean, for me, the best game that the Chiefs that I've seen them play offensively was a game that they lost, and that was against the Rams in 2018. I mean, again, they scored 105 points in a matter of 60 minutes. Now, Patrick had 5 turnovers in that game. He had 3 interceptions and 2 fumbles, but he also had 6 touchdowns. And just the manner in which that game was played, with Kareem Hunt running and scoring on the ground, of course, catching the ball, you had Travis Kelce, Tyreek. I mean, it was just a game that went back and forth. Now, granted, team didn't have no defense. Now, we'll get to the defense in a second. I'm still kind of worried about this defense. Because they're going to be young, they're going to make some mistakes. But I think, according to what Justin Reed said, which I tend to agree with, if they're going to make the mistakes, they're going to make it at full speed. So I like that because they're going to be going after it. But I just feel, looking at this offense, that I'm trying to figure out who's that back on here that's like Kareem Hunt. And to be honest, I think it's Pacheco, just because of his body frame, and you could probably think Rojo, but man, I got to go with Pacheco. But I just think that for this team, because you still don't know what they're going to be with these wide receivers, I just think, and I've seen too many games, because this will be my 5th year covering Patrick's NFL career. I've seen too many games where they get a lead, but they keep trying to get those fantasy stats for Patrick to, which I get it. You want to bolster his MVP. I get it. But I also think that if the more wins you get, the better off you get a chance to bolster his claim for MVP. I just think that if you can get a 2 touchdown lead, which this offense can do it, and I do think that they can do it quickly enough where they can kind of rely on the running game some. I think, especially when you look at their schedule, how hellacious it's going to be, because Phoenix, or Arizona, as you want to call it, they're going to have a lot to prove in this first game out. Obviously, everything going on with Kyler Murray, they're going to come out, he's going to have to come out smoking. So the question is, defensively and offensively, how can the Chiefs, make sure that they get off on the right track, put themselves in a position where they can kind of keep Kyler and that offense on the sideline. I just think that if the Chiefs are able to establish a good running game throughout the season, I think that's going to help them, especially in a tough AFC West, because I know we're going to talk about that with Jeff Chadiha later on. We got to come up with the bet for next for this NFL season. He told me it's going to be based on the AFC West. That I believe that if the Chiefs can solidify that running game this season, Jordan, I think sky's going to be the limit for him.
Well, let me ask you this. Looking at it from a defense's perspective, do you think defenses are going to want to give the Chiefs the run to slow down the passing attack?
I think they're going to challenge the Chiefs to run the football. Because the thing is, nobody knows what to expect with the offense or with the wide receivers. I mean, as much as McCole says he wants to take that role of Tyreek, there's still only one cheetah. I mean,
right, exactly.
That speed, that's world-class speed versus, you just happen to be fast at 4.3, because like Marquez is a 4.3 guy as well. But if I'm the defense, I'm going to force them to run the football, because the thing is, you don't want Patrick beating you throwing the football, which is what he's able to do. But if you can show that you can run the football, then that, to me, that's going to force the defense to make adjustments. And when they make that adjustment, that's when Patrick will hit them over the top. That's just my opinion. That's what I would do if I'm a defense coordinator. I'm going to force them to run the football, show that you can, get ground on get yardage on the ground. Now, by doing that, you have to keep the other team's offense on the sideline, which I'm fine with that. And trust and believe, I know Eric Bieniemy would be fine with running the football as well. So that's what I think.
So with the passing attack, like, where would you like to see Patrick under 40 passing attempts? Where would you like to see as far as balance is concerned?
Man, it would depend on what my parlay looks like that day.
No money aside.
Okay, so throw the money aside. No, I mean, 35 to 40 is fine. I mean, because they're going to get probably about 70 offensive plays. So if I'm not saying it's got to be 40-30. I can do 45-25. If you give me 70, I can do 45. But again, it depends on how the drive is looking. And so if they're able to strike quick, then I would like to see 30 passes, because he doesn't with the way the offense is and the way they like to strike, he doesn't need a lot of attempts to beat you. I mean, you give him that many attempts because you're trying to inflate the stats and stuff. But last time I checked, 289 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, still can still get you some interceptions. Can still get you some MVP votes. Mike, your thoughts?
Well, again, you make a good point. You're going to force that defense to make some adjustments on the fly, and they're wide open. They're vulnerable, and so that running game, I just think it's and we'll talk about the Cowboys later, but Nate Newton, his concern is the offensive line for them, because he says the key to helping out Dak is the run game. Mm-hmm. And I think that would be the case with every quarterback, But now Mahomes, he just needs a minimal run game. That's going to be just enough. And so,
with Andy Reid, he's going to get the minimum. Probably. That's going to be the problem. He's going to get the minimum.
Yeah, right. That's just it. That's Andy's name right there, right? We haven't really known Andy. I remember Westbrook. I mean, Westbrook back in the day with Philadelphia was he was a bad boy, but
Donovan McNabb was. I mean, he wasn't Mahomes either.
Exactly.
Right.
It was Donovan McNabb's offense. So, you make a good point about make that defense stop that run, because they're going to be on the fly and they're going to be their heads going to be on a swivel. Anyway,
and one quick thing that having a run game established will help your young defense, which we're about to talk about here in a second as well.
God, yeah,
because you don't want them out there on the field.
Well, and that's the other thing too. See, I swear. And look, man, and a lot of times people ask me, Dan, are you a Chiefs fan? I'm okay. I am, but I'm not. What I have to cover is I got to be objective. And so when I point out what I feel are deficiencies, is not to poke holes in the Chiefs and I think they're going to do bad. Trust me, they do well, I do well. They go to Super Bowl, I go to Super Bowl. I'm going to go anyway. But so it's like I want them to do well, but the thing is, there are weaknesses that can be exposed, and it's like you want them to address it early so it doesn't come back to bite you again. I go back to, as much as I emotionally hate it, and I hate it for many reasons, and of course Jeff's is one to point it out, is them not being able to hold on to a lead. I mean, you got an 18-point lead again for some reason, and I don't know if fans realize this. For some reason, it's always a 21-3 18-point lead that does Kansas City in. People remember 2017. The last game that they lost, I believe, was Tennessee Titans. They lost. They gave up an 18-point lead when it was 21-3 against the Tennessee Titans, and they players went down with injuries, and they just did, and that was Alex Smith's last game. Of course, back in January, when we were in Cincinnati, Chiefs had an 18-point lead, somehow lost it in the second half to Cincinnati. I'm like, come on, man. Then second half, AFC Championship game. I'm sitting thinking, there's no way that's going to happen twice against the same team with the Super Bowl trip on the line. Well, they found a way to do it. So for me, I don't know if 18 just happens to be the magic number where, and if they get to an 18-point lead, perhaps, hopefully they'll just kick a field goal or something instead of trying to go for a touchdown to end the half or something. But they get an 18-point lead. They got to know, they have to learn to run the football, kill the clock.
Right.
Because the last time I checked, offense can't score if you don't turn the ball over if you run the football.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's the thing where the run game is really going to come into impact the Chiefs this season is when you get those big leads, get out with the victory. But for some reason, I feel like the Chiefs just don't know how to hit the brakes. They play to punish. It felt like, and like you said, it comes
they've never look. It's just like me when it comes to day trading, when it comes to gambling. They've never liked to win. To just walk away with the win, and you want to go back back and get that greed. But to your point, not just focus on the run game. The Chiefs offensively have looked good at the wide receiver spot. Now, Sky Moore has shown, if you look at some video clips, he's been able to do some good route running. But the receiver that has stood out thus far for the Chiefs, I think everyone would agree, would be Juju Smith-Schuster. You see a lot of the highlights again. I take it all with a grain of salt because it's different when you got pads on versus, you run in shorts and T-shirt. But, still looking good. We talked to him this week as well. And, he's this is his first type of training camp that, one's on a college campus, kind of takes him back to the day when he was in college, you said, but also the heat. He's not used to this type of heat. So just to read it, when we talked to him, because he's, was in Houston, so that's a different type of heat. But for Juju, though, Juju has looked good. I know a lot of people were saying that, Marquez would be the number one receiver just because where he's going to be lined up at, things like that. But it seems though, thus far in training camp, that Juju has been the one that has stood out the most.
Well, let me ask you this, because I got a lot of fantasy people who tune into the show, and they asked the question about Sky Moore. So do you think it's going to be a situation where you're going to have Marquez out there, Juju, and Hardman, and then Sky Moore is going to be more of a slow developing player? Or do you think that Sky Moore initially is going to be out there with the starting position? Because I think that when it comes
he's not going to be starting. But he's going to get the reps because Reed, they utilize their weapons. So their skilled players, they will rotate them in, no problem. So it really in this offense is not a matter of who starts, to have that on your record or whatever. It's going to be the amount of reps and what you do with it.
So as far as the targets and priority when it comes to Chiefs offense, where do you see Sky Moore? You have Kelsey is going to be number one, of course. And then when it comes to wide receiver core, do you think 4?
It'll be number 4. Just because of the opportunities and the touching and stuff. Because obviously, you're going to roll with your number ones as long as possible. Now, obviously, depending on if you got them running deep or something, you pull them out. You let Sky Moore and Josh Gordon come in and take a spell. So he'll get again 17-game season. Who knows if anybody gets nicked or whatever throughout the year. So, but again, Sky Moore. But again, I will say. And I've talked about it. I'm high on Josh Gordon. I think, and I talked to Eric Bieniemy yesterday and asked him about it, and he said that, again, to my point, what has worked well, Mike, with Josh Gordon is the fact that he's been with the Chiefs, I think, since October, November last year when they signed him, made it through the season, practiced with Patrick and them in the offseason, knows the playbook, and according to Eric Bieniemy, Mike, practices hard, plays hard, and even when he makes a mistake, he makes the full speed, but he'll come to the coaches and say, "Hey, I messed up. I'll correct it." And I kind of like we all got guys. Herbie has Jordy Fortson. My guy for me is Josh Gordon because I want to see him do well. How if you're not human, something's not wrong. Something's not right with you. So I want him to do well. I think that the time that he's got now underneath his belt, he's in football shape too. He's in football shape. I think that if and when he makes this team, I think he's going to really be able to. And the good thing is that because he's not the number one, he doesn't have that pressure where he feels like he has to, be that guy like he was when he was in Cleveland, to an extent when he was in New England, when Tom Brady was depending on him. I think with him being in Kansas City and he's just one of the receivers versus having to be the man, I think that's also going to help him as well.
Well, I think he's been humble too, and it's obvious that, Coach Reed has a lot of faith in him, and he's directing that faith to him. So he somebody believes in him. And that's why he'll go up and say, that was my fault, and I think for as long as he's been on that roster, they see something in him. And we know he can play. We know he can play. He just had to get those demons out of his system, which I think is probably the longest it has been for him from what I can understand, from what I can tell. And I just think when you show that tough love that he's had to go through and he's able to stay on this roster, be a humble guy. And as you said, he doesn't have to be the guy. He's just part of the crew. He's one of the fellas. He mixes in with them like that. I think he feels more comfortable again, I'm just going by what you guys are saying. I think he feels more comfortable in that setting, and you're going to get a lot out of him. He's there for a reason. That cork just hasn't been popped yet, but he's there for a reason.
So Jordan, I'm curious on your opinion on this. I mean, are you with the rookies that we're looking at, Sky Moore, and you can switch to the defense side with Josh Williams, McDuffie, Karlaftis. Are you expecting a lot from him? I mean, should Chiefs fans expect a lot of from the production side? Sky Moore, maybe not so much because you can hide him within the realm of the offense, but are most of these rookies, in your opinion, someone that Chiefs fans should be counting on to contribute greatly this season?
Yeah, absolutely. So start with Sky Moore. I think that when I scouted him in the draft this season, he had tremendous upside. So I felt like Sky Moore was going to be an instantaneous starter when it comes to the Chiefs offense. So that's why I was asking the question, because, you look at what he can do. He can play inside, can also play outside. So he gives you that versatility when it comes to Eric Bieniemy's offense. He can do a variety of different things. So I think eventually he might merge. It's not like a situation in Dallas where you need him week one, right? Yeah. So you can kind of slow play him and let him get accommodated to the offense, because the offense is a little bit more complicated than some other NFL systems. And then when you look on the defensive side of the ball, I think Trick McDuffie, he is going to be a day one starter out there as well that the Chiefs are going to lean on. But also George Karlaftis is going to be another player that I think the Chiefs are going to lean on heavily to get that pass rush involved. And you kind of heard about Frank Clark, kind of being his mentorship and taking George under the wing. So I think those would be the first three guys you'll probably look at to have that instant impact. And then you might see like Leo Janelle kind of emerge at the linebacker position and so on. But I think those would be the three core guys Chiefs fans would definitely see week one, week two, having some impact with the roster.
And of course, the Chiefs this week signed Carlos Dunlap as well to a one-year deal, $8 million at the defensive end. According to Frank Clark is funny. According to him yesterday, he's like, we asked somebody, I know he's got 96 sacks. I mean, that's enough. That's enough for me.
Right.
Now I tell people, you can't get Frank going. You get going, he's going to drop some S-bombs, which he did. He got so comfortable yesterday. I thought he was going to drop some other bombs, and it wasn't the F-bomb I was worried about.
He said he was showing maturity, though. He said he was.
Well, and look, we'll talk about that now. I mean, the big thing is, I asked Frank, about his sudden weight loss because, we had seen pictures. I'm like, damn, well, I mean, I'm thinking Whitney Houston at the time, crack is whack. But granted, I know he doesn't do it, so I'm being facetious when I say that. But, when they talked to, they were showing pictures, I was like, I hadn't seen, well, he wasn't showing up for OTA, so I didn't really know, like, his situation. But then when we got a chance, because we hadn't talked to him since January, I think it was. So, I had to ask him, I was like, bro, sudden weight loss, like, what's going on? And he said that he had been dieting, he stopped drinking alcohol, which I had heard that he had stopped drinking maybe about 4 or 5 months ago. So I wanted to let him say, because I didn't want to say, because I saw it on social media, I wanted him to address it first. And so when he mentioned it, then I got a chance to follow up and, why that, because I was wondering, well, how much were you drinking? Was you drinking like it was water or something? Because, generally when you talk about you giving up alcohol like that and you quit 4 or 5 months strong, you was really going heavy in it. I mean, and look, I'll be honest with you, man, there were times when he would come to the podium, I'm like, and I've said this to, there's something wrong with Frank, so, whether you can see it in his eyes, his words slurring, I'm like, don't bring him to the podium like this, because he, and so,
right.
In fact, he was able to address it and talked about, the biggest thing he said about it is that you have to grow up sometimes. And the fact that he was able to address those demons, he said he spoke with Andy Reid in the offseason. Andy says that I know what type of player you are. You know what type of player you are. You didn't have it this past year. So, and he wanted to stay. Did ask him about his current legal situation. He says that it should be wrapped up sooner than expected. So, of course, you still have to go through the personal conduct depending on what happens with it. So we'll see what happens with that. But all in all, Frank said, like, now I don't know what his weight is though, because he's a defensive end, but he looked like he looked like a 220-pound linebacker. So again, he says he's still strong. He says he's he lost the weight, he gained strength. I personally being 6 feet from him, I don't see it. I don't see it in his arm. So, hopefully he'll show us something when the season starts. But that's what it is.
Yeah. I think a lot of players you're seeing across the league are starting to lose a little bit of weight because of the 17
Well, Frank
games.
lost a lot of weight.
It's drastically.
Well, because he said he was up to 260 last year.
So where do you think he's now, like 240-ish?
Man, I told you he looked like you 220-ish.
Ooh.
That's what he looked like. I mean,
yeah,
you know,
10 to 15. You know what I'm saying? I can understand that, but that's a.
If you look at pictures, I mean, that we just took, photograph from yesterday from his presser. Just look at his arms.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, his arms, they tell the story. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, there's a reason why players sometimes wear cut off sleeves or long sleeves or whatever like that. He's been wearing long sleeves a lot lately. So,
it changes a lot when you're in the trenches, man.
Yeah, well, yeah, and now hopefully, and again, this is his first week of camp. We haven't seen him in OTs or anything like that. So hopefully it's conditioned everything, and we'll get a chance to possibly see next week against Chicago. Oh man, it's dying, right? Next week. I'll go to Chicago next Saturday. To see what they look like. So
yeah, I'm interested.
Mike, so look, from your perspective, when you hear Frank Clark talking about giving up alcohol, because granted, well, like I was trying to get it out of him, but I did want to know how he lost so much weight. But when you hear a player kind of open up in the way that he did yesterday, talking about, giving up alcohol, knowing that he needs to play better and taking a lot of onus for his play and production over the last year, what does that say to you?
Well, and I saw the sound and I read about it. I was like, wow, did he have a problem? Did someone tell him he had a problem?
And Mike, let me. I'm sorry. Let me jump in. He did say, when I asked him about the drinking, if he had a problem, he said that he had been drinking since his Michigan days. He said it was a big party school. He said he just liked to drink. But you brought that into the NFL as well. Now, granted, he had a rough childhood growing up. I mean, for people who know his background, he had a rough childhood. So he probably could have been drinking before he got to college. I'm not trying to be naive or anything like that. So the fact that he said that he did it heavily in college and it kind of followed him into the NFL, and here you are, I think 5-6 years later, where you realize, okay, this is going to be a problem, especially if I want to continue to be productive and have, my time here in Kansas City. So that's just to answer your question, Mike. He said that he was okay. He had started heavily when he was in college.
Well, then just think how good he can really be if he's been in the league this long, having that issue, and now he's trying to put it to the side. I think this is part of a way of him cleansing himself. I'm gonna come clean with y'all. I've been, the drinking thing was a thing for me, and I've cut it out. And so he is making an investment within himself. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you go out on a limb and you let the world know your secret, as he did publicly, at that platform, now he's got to live up to it. Now we have to live up to it, and so maybe that's the challenge that's in front of him. And because I can't even think the last time a person talked publicly about having a drinking issue.
Yeah,
right? that really takes a lot of intestinal fortitude, and you kind of wonder, did he battle stating that? Or maybe it was that talk with Coach Reed.
Well, that too, but but one other thing, and it's funny because it kind of made sense that there were times over the last, I guess he's been in with 3 years since the Chiefs won Super Bowl, so the last 2 years where he would be sitting out of practice for intestinal, for stomach stuff, and I always joked about he had bubble guts, but if you stop thinking about it, could have been alcohol poisoning. It could have, it could have been, the alcohol stuff that, and then of course, being dehydrated, stuff like that. So I think all that come into play, and then of course when you look at the situation you put yourself in on the legal side where you get into trouble, that can impair your judgment. So again, at the end of the day,
he's taking a long look at himself and decided, I don't like who I am.
Exactly.
And there are people who are relying on me, and I cannot any longer let them down. Now, we don't know about it, but those in his circle know about it, and that's who he has to pay his debt to.
Yeah. Well, let's take a quick time out. We'll come back. We'll talk about a little bit more on the defense and talk about some of these rookies that are running with the first team. And then we'll also see what Mike's got going on out there in Oxnard, California, covering the Dallas Cowboys. Keep it locked into the show with Darren Smith here on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
It's Mama Mary here with Greengrass Cattle Company. Summer is here, and that means grilling season. Greengrass Cattle Company has premium pasture-raised steaks, burgers, brats, and hot dogs, perfect for any grilling occasion. Greengrass Cattle Company is locally owned in Weston, Missouri. We raise premium Black Angus cattle to make sure that you have the highest quality steak possible. We also deliver straight to your door. Stop by our store in Weston or visit greengrasscattleco.com.
It's time to fire up those grills and smokers. Get a great deal at Smoke and Fire with up to $200 of free accessories with your grill purchase. Napoleon, Memphis, Fire Magic, Kamado Joe, and Primo. Easy to use, easy to clean, and easy on the fuel. Always the largest selection of seasonings and barbecue accessories. Shop local and save. Think family, think friends, think Smoke and Fire.
Listen to Sports Radio 810 WHB Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for your chance to win tickets to a special screening of Bullet Train from B&B Theaters.
Talk to me.
I am ready. You are getting the new and improved me.
I think you might be forgetting what you do for a living. Take the gun.
Every job I do, somebody dies. I'm not that guy anymore.
Listen Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to see a special sneak preview of Bullet Train at B&B Theaters. Listen and win with Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Dear Mainland, aloha. We've been hearing about all this multitasking you're up to. Texting while calling, while emailing. Maybe sometimes you take a little break and do just one thing. Allow me to demonstrate with a big wave from Kona Brewing. Single tasking. One life, right? Mahalo. Single task tonight with a big wave from Kona Brewing. Mahalo for drinking responsibly. Copyright 2021, Kona Brewing Company.
Hi, Tyler Reed. ReedBuickGMC.com has over 200 Reed-certified pre-owned trucks, SUVs, and cars ready for delivery. The Carfax, up-to-date maintenance details, and market-based pricing are all at your fingertips. Photos, videos, and all the details you need to make a decision on your next vehicle. Visit ReedBuickGMC.com today or call now 800-291-9406 and shop with confidence. Reed Buick GMC is values-driven.
I want to make the most of summer without breaking the bank. So I shopped Kohl's Friends and Family sale. With my 25% off coupon, I headed to the store and got shorts for $14.99, plus an extra 50% off a swimsuit, 40% off patio furniture, and $20 off as a Kohl's Rewards member. More style and more savings for the win. Select styles, $20 off of $100 valid in store only. 25% offer ends July 31st in store only. Some exclusions apply. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
Hi, Chiefs fans. I'm Brandy with Stony Creek Hotel and Conference Center in St. Joseph, Missouri. Are you looking for the best place to stay for training camp? Join us at Stony Creek Hotels while you're in St. Joe. We've got unmatched amenities, lodge-like accommodations that you and your family will enjoy. With complimentary hot breakfast, an indoor-outdoor pool, and free Wi-Fi, you can make camp a mini vacation. Book your stay today at StonyCreekHotels.com or call 1-800-659-2220.
This is Solomon Wilcox of PFF and Sirius XM NFL Radio, and you're listening to The Ship with Darren Smith on Sports Radio 810 WHB and ESPN Kansas City.
Welcome back to The Ship with Darren Smith here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, 810WHB.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all that and then some. The All Sports, All Play Network, everything. Darren Smith, Jordan Tucker, Michael Coleman. We got Blake Sneeders in the back. I've got a question. Now, this is not football related, so we're only going to talk about it for a couple of minutes. But Jordan and I were talking about this during the break, and maybe Blake, you can help me out with this. Now I know WrestleMania, but when did SummerSlam become a two-night, or is it just on Saturday nights? Because I remember when this stuff was on Sundays, like the last Sunday of the month for like this. But I'm looking on Twitter yesterday and everything, and I'm getting all these updates. I'm like, wait a second, man. What am I supposed to watch Sunday night if SummerSlam is on Saturday night? So if anybody has that question answered, they can answer. Please give us a call, 913-381-1010. Of course, we want to talk about the Chiefs. Anything else, you can give us a call. Phone lines are open. But, Mike, going back right quick to the Chiefs defense, Joshua Williams, young rookie, 6'4", corner, out of an HBCU. You also got, as we mentioned before, Trent McDuffie on the other side. They've been running with the ones. You got Justin Reed, you got Juan Thornhill, L'Jarius Sneed in that nickel based package. I mean, is this something that you're expecting Kansas City, that if they decide to go with these young players, because right now you're looking at 3 rookies potentially in this starting lineup, is that something that the Chiefs fans should be concerned about with that that much youth out there? Because Justin Reed did say on the NFL Good Morning Football, the Chiefs offense don't score on their points. Now I'm hoping. Now again, I said, man, you got to be facetious because they're scoring on their points. That means y'all giving up too many points too.
Well, yeah, they should be concerned. Look at the quarterbacks in that AFC West, right? Just the AFC West alone is going to be on the job training, hey, a C- ain't going to cut it. they got to come out strong, and so they get that. That's why that pass rush is going to be so important. That front line on defensive side, they're going to have to kind of babysit, in a manner of speaking, that young secondary until they get their feet under them. By mid-season, if they're having success, you're going to see it, but it's not going to happen right away.
I think the biggest pressure is going to be on Chris Jones this year. I mean, obviously, if you look at, he wanted to play, defensive end last year, and first game he had two sacks, but then he fell off. I think it's going to be imperative on Chris Jones, especially if he wants to be in that next upper echelon. And I think this is the 3rd year of his contract. If you want any type of extension or don't want to have to get traded or something, I think this is a year that you have it's funny, you think about it, a lot of these players should have bounce back years. And if for no other reason, you should want to have a bounce back year after what took place in the AFC Championship game. I mean, there was many a times that Joe Burrow was in his grasp, in the grasp, and they couldn't bring him down. And I think if I'm a player like that should be eating me up all off season. And I don't know, and perhaps I'll ask Patrick if somebody doesn't try to steal my question between now and then, is what type of model or what's their thing for this year? Obviously 2020, they wanted to run it back, and so this year, because of how that ended, the season ended, I wonder what their motivation or what their theme is on this season is, going into, hell, they'll just get the quarterback down. Is it, complete the second half? I don't know. But that's, for me, that's what I would like to see.
Yeah, to answer your first question, I don't think Chiefs fans should be concerned about the secondary with the young players. I think they should be excited, because I think they have a lot of young youth out there, and the player that's not being mentioned yet is Brian Cook, the safety. And he was one of my favorites, coming out of the draft as a hard hitter. He's kind of built from that Tyrann Mathieu mold. So I don't think you're going to see, a lot of these young players earlier, maybe this season. But I think for the future, when it comes to the secondary in Kansas City, the future is bright. Answer Chris Jones' question. Yeah, I think that Chris Jones is going to take that leap to be that game breaker. I mean, heck, I saw it firsthand last year when they played the Cowboys, right? He completely just took that game and just dominated, right? So I think that's something that you're going to need to see. This season's more consistency when it comes to Chris Jones, but also what I'm excited to see is from Nick Bolton in his second year. So I feel like this is going to be the year where Nick Bolton really takes a leap in his second year and emerges to be one of those top 10 middle linebackers in the NFL.
Who's been real quiet is Willie Gay. We haven't really heard much about him in camp or even OTA. So we'll, keep our fingers crossed for him.
Because the trenches, your linebackers and your defensive tackles and your defensive line is going to help your young secondary core. So
and Mike, look, I've always been a big proponent that if you're going to play these rookie players, and Jordan and I, we were talking about this before the show even began, is that you kind of get a sense of how Brett Veach operates. Is that he'll get the big name free agent, maybe get a 1 to 3 year deal contract. But when you look at, as Jordan was talking about with Sky Moore, if Sky Moore can develop, well, you already got Marquez for another 2 years after this first year's up. Juju's on a 1 year deal, but he could parlay that. If he has a big year, he could parlay that to long-term contract with Kansas City. That leaves someone like McCole Hardman expendable to where, okay, you want a big contract, we don't have to sign you because we got Sky Moore, we got Justin Ross, maybe Cornell Powell if he shows.
I got a place for him. Hey, Hardman, if you're listening, man, don't worry. I got you, man. I got you.
You know, I can't be mad at that. I can't be mad at that. That's a good one, Jordan.
They grab the USFL receiver. They'll take an NFL receiver.
I know they would. That's a good one, Jordan.
Little plug out there.
But no. I mean, I will say this. I do like how Kansas City. If you're gonna play these young guys, play these rookies, get them mixed in. Obviously, get them mixed in with the veterans, so let them learn their mistakes. But also, I also think that the biggest deal is that you have Joshua Williams and Trent. You got them going up against Juju, Marquez, McCall. I'm always of the big proponent of the iron sharpening iron, and so I think that can only help them. So if they do have to come out and start, that they're not going to be afraid of the big light going up against a number one receiver from basically when they play the Chargers in week 2. You see Josh again. I always been a big proponent. Chiefs need some big ass defenders. Joshua Williams 6'3", 6'4". You mash him up against Mike Williams or Keenan McCardle. Now you got height for height. Now, granted, hopefully his footwork and speed is what it's going to need to be. But if he can do that, I think that gives Kansas City a greater chance when you start having these division matchups and you playing against some of these teams that have bigger wide receivers than you normally had at a defensive back. Because for me, I was always trying to figure out I get that they're good. But man, you got 6'4" against 6'1", 5'11". Like I'm gonna throw it up over the top, every time, and just let my receiver out jump your defender because he's got 4 or 5 inches on him on top of whatever his vertical is gonna be.
Yeah, and I think when you're seeing a lot of the defensive coordinators, they're liking these taller corners lately because it creates smaller windows. So, you see a lot of big nickel around the NFL, also some dime packages. So you might see a situation where the Chiefs would use Josh Williams in certain situations. I think he's going to be a special teams guy maybe to start, but you might see him sprinkled in a few packages defensively. I don't think he's going to be a starting corner day one. So like I said, as far as the Chiefs is concerned, you're going to see McDuffie. He'll be your rookie starter at day one, right? Absolutely right. And then you'll probably see George Karlaftis out there, but I think you'll see different packages where you'll see Williams out there.
Well, I do like the fact that if nothing else, that he's going to get his chance to shine and get a chance to get some experience. And Chiefs are going to be doing a lot with these rookies and their draft picks because one, they're cheap, relative,
right?
And at the end of the day, if somebody wants to play hardball, it's going a different direction. Like again, they brought in a couple of left tackles last week to start training camp, and they're doing a rotation. So, but you can tell that there is a difference between Orlando Brown and whoever else is out there. So we'll, wait and see how that plays out. But Mike, I know we got you for another 10 minutes or so. I want to check and see what's going on with you out there in Oxnard, California. What have you been seeing in your coverage of the Dallas Cowboys this week?
Well, out here in the Ox, as I call it, there's a young receiver, not young receiver, he's a second-year guy who's really opening some eyes. J.T. Vasher, who's a Texas Tech guy of all places. He had a one hell of a catch a few days ago, right in the corner of the end zone. And when it looked like that ball was overthrown, he leaped his long arm out there and snagged it down with one hand, and the crowd went crazy. Now, prior to that practice, to that day, no one even asked about this kid. But when he made that catch, who was the number one person everybody wanted to talk to was this guy right here. He's been on the roster. Are you familiar with him, Tuck?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was kind of the one who found him last year. So I did a draft video on TV.
Look at Tuck trying to
I'm smiling. I'm smiling, man, because I get to see some of my kids grow up. And so, TJ Vasher, I told everyone last year, I would have drafted him personally. He was an undrafted free agent out of Texas Tech, but he's 6'6", has big playmaking ability, isn't the sharpest route runner. But I said that he gives the Dallas Cowboys a dynamic they really didn't have out there. So last season I said, hey, this kid's going to explode, but he had hamstring injuries. And so he didn't play last year in the preseason. So this year, I think fans are finally getting a glimpse of what he can do. And I knew that the Dallas Cowboys had plans for him because that was the reason why they held on to him last year on the roster, on the practice squad. So I think, it's a lot of exciting things surrounding TJ Vasher. So like I said, seeing some of my kids grow up there, I'm excited about it.
Well, here's somebody else that's growing up. It's Anthony Brown. This guy, number 3, In fact, someone asked him, are the single-digit guys the ones to watch out for? And everybody kind of chuckled because the ones who have the single digits are having good camps. He did a pick six on Dak a few days ago, which opened, raised eyebrows, but also applauded him. And I will say this about their secondary. They're tenacious, man. They are tenacious. Not just Diggs. We don't Diggs can play. But they have a mojo going on with them right now that once, everybody's good in the shorts or shoulder pads or shirt and T-shirts. We get that. But I just think the energy that Brown and TJ bring to this club is spontaneous, even for those who already have the energy. Perfect example. They gave us Micah Parsons at the podium a couple of days ago, and I asked him, are you concerned about being cautious of living up to what you did last year? Like the word is pressure. He's like, I don't believe in pressure, is what he said. He said, my thing is, if you can't live up to what you did the year before, then you don't belong here. He says, no, he said, pressure is just a made-up word for an excuse for somebody, and I'm not going to have any other. And I mean, this is the way this guy talks. I mean, this guy is such a leader that even the veterans, he's only been here second year. So even the older guys look up to this guy. That says a lot because that defense, they're coming along. DeMarcus Lawrence. There's been no Randy Gregory talk. Now they're going to be going to Denver, I think, next week, as a matter of fact, or this week actually, and they're going to practice with the Denver Broncos. So that's when you're going to hear more of the Randy Gregory talk, if you will, be next week. But so I'll say Brown, Basher. A lot of questions were posed, obviously, to number 88. And that being C.D. Lamb, and they asked him, or we asked him, like, hey, listen, now that Amari's not here, are you doing anything different? He's like, no, I'm still, I'm used to being the guy, and I never considered myself less than a one since I've been here. It's just now official. I mean, that's the kind of swag he brings to camp, and I think that speaks well. Pollard, we asked him, he is very much anticipating this season because he knows he's going to be more and more packages. He's going to be on the field at the same time as number 21, Elliott, and he's looking forward to that. He said, I'm just waiting my turn. I said, have you been frustrated? He said, I've been frustrated, but I'm not going to count and be mad. That's just part of the game. You just have to be patient. He said, now my patience is paying off for me, and I will be in more packages and be more involved in the game this year. So those are the upside going on. The offensive line, we'll see. As I said, Nate Newton made the reference that they can be good if now Kellen Moore can come up with a scheme to get that ball, get that running game going. He's big on that run game, and that's the Cowboys' trademark. That's what they do, is run the ball. They've had great quarterbacks. Go ahead.
I had a question for you, and I know we talked a little bit about it on Friday. Michael Coleman, Jordan Tucker, of course, Jordan me on the ship with Darren Smith on Sports Radio 18 WHB. We know what Dan Quinn can do. We know what Kellen Moore is supposed to be able to do. But one of the things I wanted to talk about before, because we got to go at about 3 minutes for the top of the hour, but talk quickly about what you and I talked about as it relates to Mike McCarthy, because I asked the question whether or not he's under pressure to win this season, based off of, expectations last year, especially with Micah Parsons and the team, coming back and bouncing back, winning the way that they did. Is there any pressure on Mike McCarthy to win this season?
There is, but it's not like a beat you over the head kind of pressure. I mean, even he says, listen, that San Francisco game, we learned a lot, and they're working on 2-minute drills consistently like everyone does, but they really going after it. And I just think, as I told you, I just think he's more relaxed in his position. I got a chance to bump into him when he was going somewhere on campus. I call it the campus. I said, hey, coach, yeah, what's up? So he was very approachable, and he has a connection to Baker University, and I acknowledged that. I was aware of that when I worked in KC. I did a story on that connection with him. So yeah, man, I love Baker University, and he's a big boxing fan. Who knew that? He's like, I'm an Ali guy. He saw my shirt. He said, man, is that Ali? It's the one where Ali is shadow boxing underwater. And I said, yes, oh, man, I love that shirt. I've never seen that before. And so I've never seen him gush that way. So just to see him, even away from the media setting, he was approachable, he was relaxed, and I think that speaks a lot about the kind of person he hopes to be or that he's become. So, you know, when he was in Green Bay, I always felt like he was just a gruff guy. And I know you asked Darren, well, what's he do?
Mm-hmm.
What does he do? Because you have the other guys. He's a commander is what he does. That's what he does. And the guys believe in him, especially Dak. If your quarterback believes in you, everybody's going to follow suit with that quarterback. And Dak's like, that's my guy, point blank. And so I just think that all the beating that he's taken, even winning 12 games last year, has really settled him in. As he said, we're at a better starting line than we were a year ago. And let's see where he works from that point. You know, maybe in the 100-meter, he's at the 30-meter mark. Let's see if he can do the strong finish.
Well, Mike, what's on tap for you this week? I know you're coming back later on this week, but what's on tap for you while you're out in Oxnard?
We're going to be, I got a couple of features I'm doing because in my 10 o'clock show, we have an hour-long show on Sunday. So I have 2 sports hits. One of those stories will focus on a local guy from Tyler named Braylon Jones. He's a big stud offensive lineman at the University of Houston.
One of the kids.
No, he wasn't. I like Braylon Jones, though.
And he was a valedictorian of his 2016 high school class, you know, and he kind of shies away from that. When I brought it up, he said, well, yeah. I said, well, he said, I'm proud of it, but I don't like to talk about it. I said, why don't you like talking about it? I said, well, I don't want people to think that, you know, I think I'm all that. I'm out here to play football. I said, well, listen, aren't many, I wouldn't imagine, on this team that were valedictorians, you know, and there probably might be. I said, but you're the only one listed in the manual that you are. So I'll be doing a feature on him, and we'll be also focusing in my second sports hit on Micah Parsons and his whole thing. I mean, this guy here is cut out fried foods, and he was quick to say, as if it's a bad thing, I'm not a vegetarian. Well, that's okay. It's okay if you are, but he's altered his diet. He's altered his lifestyle a little bit, you know. Not so much like Clark was talking about, but he's talking about some things he's done. Sugar, you know, the younger players, they get it. They know they want to be great, and they know if they want to have a career like Brady, be around for a long time, they've got to do the right thing with their bodies.
All right. Well, that's Michael Coleman in from Oxnard, California. We'll have him back next week. Mike, quickly, Hall of Fame game Thursday night, Jacksonville Raiders. Who you got?
Jacksonville.
Sad part is I agree with Mike on that. So, Mike, we'll talk to you next week, man. Have a safe trip back. All right, we'll take a quick time out. Shout out to my mama, Nina Howard. She's tuning into the radio. She's, told me I better shout her out. So, shout her out. So, I want something at Red Robin on you when I get there after the show. We'll be back. When we get back, we'll be talking to Jeff Chadiha of the NFL Network. Keep it locked into the ship right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
This is Rob Parker from FS1 and Fox Sports Radio, and you're listening to The Ship with Darren Smith on Sports Radio 810 WHB and ESPN Kansas City.
My friend and I are taking a trip to Mexico this year, but neither of us speak Spanish. So we downloaded Babbel and started learning Spanish fast.
Want to get conversational in another language in as little as 3 weeks? Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons were designed by language experts to be the most efficient and effective way to learn a new language.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
Babbel, language for life. Celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. That's BABBEL.com.
Cashback is not available on gas in New Jersey and Wisconsin.
This is Matt Crowder live at the gas station on 41st Street reporting on those skyrocketing gas prices. Excuse me, miss, are you buying less gas now because of the high prices?
Oh, I never pay full price for gas anymore. I just use the free Upside app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Upside app?
Yes, I get real cash back every time I buy gas.
Well, does that actually add up to anything?
I've made around $200.
Wow. Well, there you have it. Stop paying full price for gas. Download the free Upside app and get real cash back every time you buy gas. This is Matt Crowder Radio News Network. Download the free Upside app now to earn real cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code SEAT for a $5 bonus on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, to PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code SEAT for a $5 bonus on your first tank. That's code SEAT.
For NFL action, there's only one station to follow all season long. Sports Radio 810 WHB. Sports Radio 810 is the home of NFL Sundays, Thursday, Sunday, and Monday Night Football. And Sports Radio 810 is your home for the NFL playoffs. Follow the NFL on Kansas City's hometown radio station, Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Over 35 years ago, Wholesale Batteries opened their doors and sold their first battery. Times have changed, but their commitment to customer service is the same. The commitment they made back in 1977 stays true today. Wholesale Battery is one of the largest distributors of motorcycle batteries in the country. Stop in for anything you need for your motorcycle. They also have you taken care of for all your lawnmower needs, laptops, ATVs, power sports, computer backups, cell phones, portable electronics. When it comes to batteries, these guys have it all. Call 913-342-0113 or at wholesalebatteries.net. The right battery the first time. NHRA Camping World Drag Racing is the fastest, most explosive sport on earth. And the Menards NHRA Nationals, presented by Pet Armor, are headed back to Heartland Motorsports Park in Topeka, August 12th through the 14th. Feel the power of 11,000 horsepower, 300 miles per hour racing action. Get up close to the race pits and smell that nitro, because every ticket is a pit pass. Listen to Sports Radio 810 WHB for your chance to win tickets to the NHRA Nationals. Listen and win with Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. This breaks my heart, and it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and gives it to families in need. To help, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
If a natural disaster comes knocking, how prepared is your family? You can't just close the door on earthquakes, floods, or hurricanes and hope they go away. That's why it's important to make a plan now. Ready.gov/plan has the tools and tips you need to prepare your family for an emergency. So if disaster shows up at your doorstep, you'll be ready. Visit ready.gov/plan and make a plan today. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Serving overseas was just the beginning. We might be home from war, but our mission continues in communities all across the country. It's why we're out there in times of peace and crisis, providing meals to the hungry and supplies to the sick. It's why we're giving strength to those who are too weak and bringing resources to those without them. Service doesn't stop when we're done serving. It's what makes us the VFW. Learn more at vfw.org.
This is Brian Billick, Super Bowl winning coach for the Baltimore Ravens, and you're listening to The Ship with Darren Smith on Sports Radio 810 WHB and ESPN Kansas City.
Welcome back to The Ship with Darren Smith here, as Brian Billick mentioned, on Sports Radio 810 WHB and 810WHB.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. One of these days, I guess, we'll be on Instagram if they ever let that algorithm go through. But we are joined, I want to thank so much for Michael Coleman joining us in the first hour, but we are joined by a good friend who loves to rub the salt in the wounds every time he sees me. He is from the NFL Network and NFL.com, the one only Jeff Chadiha join us. Jeff, good morning to you, my friend.
Good morning to you, man. How are you feeling?
Still feeling pretty good. Still feeling bad from our last conversation and what took place back in February, but all is well, all is well, all is well. Question for you. I believe yesterday was your first camp that you had to work this season. I know you were there Friday with your son. What you saw so far, what are your thoughts on the Kansas City Chiefs and what you've seen?
Well, it's early, but, I think that there's good energy around the camp. There's a lot of excitement, whenever you have change. you're always going to have some people who lament what's missing and other people who are excited about the opportunities that come with that. And you can feel a lot of players on that field feel like they have a great opportunity to do some things, whether that's young guys, rookies like Sky Moore and Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis, or receivers who are trying to establish themselves, reestablish themselves, like Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Juju Smith-Schuster, to even players who've been around for a while, like Frank Clark, who's lost weight and wants to redeem himself. And so there's a lot of good energy, and that's always a good thing at this time of year.
I know you cover the NFL, and I know times you do focus on the Chiefs being the hometown team that you because of the vicinity of where you live. What do you think the expectations should be realistically if you're a Chiefs fan, but also if you're these Chiefs players based off of how they ended last season?
Well, I think you expect a team that's going to compete for the AFC West Championship again. You expect a team that's going to make the playoffs and contend for a championship. I don't think that they are going to win a championship this year with the team they have, and I think there's teams out there that on paper look better and probably have a little more motivation, given their heartbreak, teams like Buffalo, for example, or what happened with Tampa Bay last year, or Green Bay. But yeah, they'll be in the mix just because they have a great coach, great quarterback, really good roster, and so those things won't change. But yeah, I mean, I think like every fan base wants to have every position on their roster be a Pro Bowler, a future Hall of Famer, a can't-miss prospect. It doesn't work that way. I mean, every team has weaknesses, every team has strengths, and every year is different. And so I look at this team as being one. They're not going to be what they were in 2019 or 2020, but they're still going to be a really good team.
Curious. Now, I think we would all agree that the AFC West, the other teams, the Vegas, the LA Chargers, the Denver Broncos, I think we would be remiss if we didn't say that they all improved vastly in the offseason. Compared to the moves that they made to what Kansas City did, did you see Kansas City improving on what they did last year, or stagnant, or going backwards compared to the moves that the other teams in the division made?
I don't know. That's pretty. They didn't go backwards, and they weren't stagnant. I think that they've gotten better at some spots. I think they're better at running back. I like Ronald Jones. I like Jared McKinnon coming back in the fold. They'll be better at offensive line because you've got guys who are a little older now, like Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey, even though the Orlando Brown situation is up in the air. I thought they got faster on defense, which I think was a big issue for them. You saw that as the season played out last year. And so, yeah, you lose to Tyreek Hill. That's a big loss, but he's the only guy they lost. Tyrann Mathieu to a certain extent because of his leadership. But Tyreek Hill was the only guy they lost where you felt like that's a big blow to their offense just because of what he could do. But again, the hope there is the quarterback is able to grow a little more and make up for that and be able to make guys better than what they are, which is when you're paying a guy $45 million a year, he better be that kind of player for you.
Jeff Chadiha joined us on the ship with Darren Smith. He is from the NFL Network and NFL.com. Jordan.
Hey, Jeff. So you mentioned, there's a lot of teams around the league with weaknesses. When we look at this Kansas City Chiefs roster as it's currently constructed, what do you think is the biggest weakness?
Well, I mean, right now, you don't know what they're going to be on defense.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the wild card there. A defensive line, they wouldn't got signed Carlos Dunlap, but again, that defensive line, that defense only ranked 29th in the NFL in sacks. And so this defense is under Steve Spagnuolo has been built on pressuring the quarterbacks. And even though they had a pretty good pressure rate, they weren't taking the quarterback to the ground. Mm-hmm. And so what you have to hope here is that Frank Clark, as he said the other day, that he's in better shape, more motivated, that he can have a bounce back year. You're hoping that George Karlaftis, a rookie who has not played a ton of football. I mean, he started playing football when he was like 15 years old, so it's like he's still a pretty raw player, can grow up quickly, and you're hoping Carlos Dunlap can come in here and help, and you're hoping Chris Jones can be dominant. And if you're not getting those things, it's going to be tough because you have a lot of new faces. You have a defense that is very complicated, and you have a coordinator who doesn't have a lot of trust in young players. So that's a pretty tough mix to swallow at this point in the year. But everybody's got to do it at some point.
Jeff, I'm curious. Again, when you look at the division and you see the moves that they've made, I know we had this conversation yesterday, so I've really tried not to give you the obvious answer. But if you don't think that the Chiefs are winning the division, which team do you see coming out of the AFC West?
I like the Chargers. On paper, they're the best team in the AFC West. You look at what they have across the board. You could probably argue that they don't have a player at any position, even at quarterback, as good as Mahomes is. Justin Herbert is considered a top-tier quarterback now. That there's not a player on there that you could say is that much better than what the Chiefs have. Kelsey's the only guy I would say. Yeah, Kelsey and Chris Jones. I'm saying that if you were to compare rosters, I think only Kelsey, Chris Jones, and Mahomes would have an advantage over what the Chargers have on paper everywhere else. So, yeah, when you look at a defense that's going to have Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, J.C. Jackson, Derwin James, a bunch of other guys, Asante Samuel, the offensive line is really good. Pro Bowler and Rashawn Slater. I mentioned Herbert, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. I mean, they go up and down the list. This is a team that's underperformed the last couple of years, and they really addressed their big weakness of last year, which was defense. And so they went out and got guys who could stop the run, guys who could defend the pass. And so I think they are well equipped to deal with what everybody else can throw at them in this division.
I do agree, and I do admit that the Chargers are the quote unquote sexy pick. I guess if you're looking at this division, I still side with the Chiefs, and this is the only reason why, as it relates to the AFC West, is that the Chiefs are kind of like the Patriots of this division, based off of what they've done the last 6 years. Now, granted, it's gotten tougher because they split with the Chargers over the last 2 seasons. I give the Chiefs the tiebreaker only because of the head coach, and I'm not sure how much the Chargers head coach will have learned from his errors, from his mistakes on kind of gambling and going on 4th down instead of just trying to take what would seem to be the obvious move. And again, you can say the same about Andy Reid. Like sometimes you think just run the football would be a little bit more obvious, but you come to the fact that that's not in the man's DNA. And of course, that's what bites him in the bullet, keeping him from the Super Bowl, among other things. I don't know whether or not when you get down in the trenches and when the game was on the line and when certain plays and certain moves need to be made, I just don't know whether or not against the Chiefs, when they face the Chiefs, whether or not the Chargers will make the necessary play calls to get over the hump against Kansas City when it matters most. Kind of like, again, what we saw in Los Angeles. I think a team to watch out for would, of course, be the Denver Broncos. What will the addition of Russell Wilson to that offense do for that team? Kind of like Tom Brady coming in, to Tampa Bay. Now, granted, had a little bit more talent. They were a potential playoff team, but Winston with the turnovers, you had to cut that out before you could see the success. If the defense is what people like you say on paper is what it should be, Denver should be much, much better. It is hard for me to not see how I don't really see any big moves that they lost with the Raiders. I know obviously you bring in, you're a playoff team and you bring in Devontae Adams. I can't see how you get weak on offense when you add the best wide receiver in football on your team. So, I mean, to me, it's going to be a nail biter. I think it does come down to maybe week 16, week 17 before we find out who wins that division. I still think Kansas City ekes it out, but not by much. And I think if they win it, it's based off of what they do, in the non-conference games or the non-division games than what they do within their own division for them to win that division, Jeff.
Yeah, the reason I don't think the Chiefs, they got a killer schedule. And again, when you have a young defense and you have new players, it's not like you're starting out. They've started out fast every year that Mahomes has been the quarterback, and even going back to Al Smith. And I think it's going to be tougher to do that when you're trying to transition so many new players into new roles. And when you look at those first 6 or 7 games, they can't afford to start the way they started last year.
Facts.
There's not going to be, maybe there is some, out there where, you run into Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay without Aaron Rodgers, or Dallas with a bunch of banged up people in midseason. That people forget how much that helped them turn their season around. That they got some breaks at midseason against some teams that probably would have beat them at full strength.
The Giants, Cowboys,
yeah, and so you get in the second half of the season and you're playing teams that just aren't as strong as you. There aren't that many breaks in the schedule, and there's probably only 3 teams on their schedule you can say, oh, that's a game they're going to just dominate.
Jacksonville, Houston, Seattle. Those 3 teams just picked it out right there.
Yeah. And so when you have that kind of mix, and let's be real, this isn't college football where you just go out there and you recruit your butt off and you get a whole bunch of 5 stars coming in here and they all play because you just can overwhelm people. This team has 6-7 guys left from the Super Bowl championship team or starters. That's such a big. That's a big
3, I think. Yeah. 3. Well, no, 4. No, 5. Yeah. You got Chris Jones. You got, I guess, L'Jarius Sneed. No, I don't think L'Jarius was on that team. Chris Jones, Frank Clark, McCole,
and Thornhill.
Yeah, Thornhill. And Travis and
Hardman, Kelsey, and Travis.
Yes, so sick.
Gosh,
and then if you want to throw Andrew Wiley in there, you can. But
you bring up a good point. But now, Jeff, you broke the news earlier. Earlier this month about the situation with Orlando Brown and his contract and stuff. Now, I've been on the record that I don't have a problem with him trying to get more guaranteed money, or at least get more of those years guaranteed. I mean, essentially, the Chiefs were guaranteeing the first 2 years, and I guess you can tack on the signing bonus out of a 6-year deal, which is like, okay, now you're playing with the math and the funny money. I've always been a big proponent. Just sign a 3-year deal. Just do what if it was, if it could have been negotiated offer, but just do what Deebo Samuels did to not Deebo Samuels, but the kid from the wide receiver from Seattle. DK Metcalf. Yeah, where he signed a 3-year deal. He got a lot. He got 58 out of $72 million guaranteed, and he's going to be a free agent by the time he's 27. I just, I know a lot of Chiefs fans are upset at Orlando Brown. I know you had to report about how the Chiefs front office, may have felt that, I don't want to say deceived, but that they were surprised by Orlando's action, not taking what was offered. From your position, are you surprised that he didn't take the contract? Because, I mean, again, a 6-year deal with only 2 years guaranteed, I kind of see where, he wouldn't sign a contract.
No, I'm not surprised by anything when it comes to money in this league. So, negotiations always come down to what a player thinks he's worth and what the team wants to pay him. And look, you go back to this time last year, and people weren't happy with me about when I talked about Orlando coming to this team and what he'd bring to this position. And when I was asked about where they would be at this time of year, I thought they wouldn't have a long-term deal done just because he was not a strong enough player at left tackle to warrant the kind of money he was seeking. And as much as he talked about wanting to play left tackle because of his father's influence, he also wanted to play it because that's where the money was at. Mm-hmm. This was always going to be an issue of a player who thinks he found the right position to play to make some money, and a team that looks at him not as a unique talent, but as one part of a machine. And so, no, I'm not surprised he didn't take it. And it's, from what I understand, it was a very short negotiation, that his demands were very, very high. That's what was, a struggle for the Chiefs, was that you couldn't even really have a meaningful negotiation because you just couldn't get close enough to where you could actually feel you were making some movement. But I mean, I never begrudge players for wanting to get as much money as they can get because all these guys watch the way the market goes in the off season and they see what Jacksonville paid Christian Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sure Orlando Brown would love to have that kind of love coming his way. And you can parse that kind of any way you want to, but in the day, they paid a lot of money for a guy who wasn't that accomplished at his position. And so, he doesn't have a ton of leverage right now, The only leverage I see him having is that you are not going to be there for week 1 or week 2, and the Chiefs' offensive line struggled as a result. And then maybe after the season, you have more different things to talk about. But right now, the Chiefs are saying, Roger Johnson or Joe Tooney, we can go with that. And so we'll see. We'll see. I mean, to me, it's like if you're not showing up for training camp, what's the point of doing all this if you're not trying to show the team that they need you?
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, the only leverage that you have is, like you said, they struggle. Maybe Patrick, knock on wood, doesn't get hurt. But if he were to get hurt, maybe that strengthens you. But then, the team could be vindictive. It's like, had you been here, what I'm saying, he might not have gotten hurt. Clark Hunt spoke to the team this week, but for me, I guess I'm saving this question for Brett Veach because, granted, I get it because it's his job, but where is it? I mean, where is it in the manual to where now, because a few players do it, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes to an extent, to where you think players should be taking less than what their value is to help a team? I mean, it's not the player's job to help the team out with their salary cap. That's what the general manager and your salary cap staff get paid for.
Well, again, it's the value of someone like Orlando Brown or any player really is all based upon circumstances. If he was a free agent, maybe you got to pay a little more money to hold on to him, to get him to sign. Maybe someone else is looking to get him. I go back to when the Ravens traded Orlando Brown. He was on the market for a while, and only one team was offering up a first-round pick to get him, and that was the Chiefs. And the Chiefs were desperate. They didn't have a left tackle. And so that, I'm sure, is part of their thinking as well, that you think you're going to go out there on the open market and have people throwing $25 million a year at you, you're crazy. And so I don't think it's much as they are expecting people to just, kowtow to what they want, even though there is a sentiment in this town and every NFL town that why wouldn't you, play for this and this much money's coming your way and you only make this much in your career. Ultimately, Orlando Brown is the one who had to live with the decision. And if he's not the villain in this, and I always say that too, he's a guy who's working and making a living and wants to make as much as he can. That's the American way. But, they try to blame his agent. yeah. But ultimately, it will get figured out. They will. I put some of this on the Chiefs for not being willing to draft a left tackle and develop them, because there are players out there in the NFL right now. I think of when I just saw in Denver, Garrett Bowles, who looked awful when he was a rookie, and now he's a Pro Bowl left tackle. Mm-hmm. There's teams, the Buccaneers won the championship with a second-round pick playing left tackle. Donovan Smith, David Bakhtiari is the fourth-round pick, second highest paid left tackle in the game.
Well, I mean, and the Chiefs showed that they can do it because of what they did with Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith.
Yeah, exactly. So some of this is just you got desperate, you went and got this guy, and now you're stuck with him, and you don't want to take the chance of having to put somebody who's not as talented or as proven on that position and hope that they can work out for you. So that's some point you got to do that.
Yeah, because you got 6 and 1.5 dozen of the other because you got a $500 million quarterback that you got to protect one way or the other. Jordan.
Yeah, Jeff. So you spoke about the Chiefs' schedule, the question marks from defensively with the youth movement. How much pressure do you think is going to be on Pat Mahomes this season? Being the star quarterback, the face of the team, as you mentioned, the Chiefs have gotten off to quick early starts. During his entire tenure with the Chiefs. But how do you think this is going to be for him this year, having to deal with some adversity?
Look, I don't think anybody puts. I think Mahomes puts pressure on himself every day to just play. I think he's always trying to be the best he can be. What I see is he's at a point in his career that every young quarterback reaches, especially guys who are high level, where now people are familiar with his style of play. People have figured some of his flaws out and know how to take advantage of that. He's still obviously a huge challenge for every defense to play against, but you've seen like what happened in the second half against Cincinnati or what happened in the first half of the season last year. You've seen him struggle. And so he's at a point now where, because of the money he's making, you don't get to have every star receiver you want to have, and you've got to make people better. And I say it all the time. Like, you look at what Aaron Rodgers was playing with in Green Bay for a long time. He had Devontae Adams and a bunch of guys. Tom Brady, when he was in New England, he had Gronk for a while, and he had Julian Edelman, but a lot of guys like Danny Amendola and Chris Hogan and Philip Dorsett catching passes. Drew Brees had Michael Thomas and a bunch of guys. This is how it goes. Mm-hmm. And so when you get to that level, you're making that kind of money, you got to make the MVSs and the Juju Smith-Schusters and the Sky Moores, you got to make them play above their heads. And so that to me is really the challenge for him. And knowing that you're not going to be able to throw the ball down the field as much as you would like. I mean, what he's gonna have to do this year is a lot of dig and dunk, a lot of point guard quarterbacking, distributing the football, and the ball coming out on time. Because I know for a fact that that's something that has been a challenge for him. Where I want to run a play, okay, I want to run a play, but I also know I can go 50 yards down the field to Tyreek, or I can go 50 yards down the field to McCole, or I can force it to Travis if I have to. And so he's going to have to be on script a lot more than he's been throughout his career.
Following that, Jeff, Patrick was asked by someone Friday about anonymous comments that were made by GMs or execs, and of course, kind of following up on what was done with Kyler Murray in his new contract with the homework clause, and Lamar Jackson comments that were made towards him, where they felt that Mahomes was a street ball quarterback and couldn't do anything past his first read. He addressed those comments, but again, it did have a slight little racial tinge to it, and just wanted your thoughts on those anonymous comments that these execs and defensive coordinators are making out there, and the fact that Patrick addressed it with the class that he did.
Look, it's. I kind of laugh at this because it was like one guy out of 50, right? Who made a disparaging comment, and I think even he opened the comment by saying, "I love the kid." So it wasn't just like he dismissed him completely as a player, but I do understand that feeling, especially the timing of it with Lamar getting attacked in the same article, and that addendum being in Kyler's contract about the 4 hours of work off the field. Yeah, it's like it's a pretty common thing that happens with quarterbacks, with black quarterbacks. They faced it for years. I always laugh when people talk about street ball when I watch old 1960s and 70s NFL films, and I see Roger Staubach scrambling around, or Fran Tarkenton running around for 8 hours and throwing passes down the field. And, Steve Young, like those guys weren't street ballers. They were just great quarterbacks. Yeah. So there is that element to it racially of that people think that when you're a black player doing it, it's more about your athletic ability and less about your acumen for the game, your IQ.
The difference between that and hip-hop.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I will say there is that. I've had coaches say to an extent what that coach had said, that you can still fool Patrick, and that goes back to the 2020 season when they almost lost to Atlanta at home towards the end of that year, and it was a bad Atlanta team, and it was like a 14-10 game, and Mahomes didn't play well, and a coach said after that game on that staff that you could fool him, that he doesn't see things as well as people might think, and he's able to make plays, when that doesn't happen, which is a testament to his ability. And we've seen that play out. We saw that play out in last year's AFC Championship game. At the end of the game, where it's just like he just was not seeing things he needed to see. And I said this before on different radio shows this week. I said, to me, it's not a processing thing, an acumen thing, an IQ thing. I think it's just a willfulness that he wants to make so many big plays that he gets greedy and he gets selfish, and you can't do that at this level because people will take advantage of that. If you're somebody who's going to be greedy, okay, be greedy, and we'll force you into making a mistake because you play that way.
Yeah, and the biggest thing I've always said with the Chiefs is that sometimes the simplest thing is the right thing. Again, you got an 18-point lead in the AFC second half game. There's no harm in running the damn football, running the clock. Let the clock be your friend. Like, I know you want to put up 42. I know you want to go into the Super Bowl with a 10-point advantage over the Rams or something. But you know what? Getting out of there with a 21-3 win still means that you get to a Super Bowl versus you trying to put up these quarterback fantasy stats or whatever, to make yourself or make Patrick look good. Like, sometimes a win is a win is a win, and get it any way necessary. Jeff, just taking a trip around the AFC, at least the NFL, so to speak. Deshaun Watson, do you think a decision comes out this week on him, and how many games do you think he gets? And, he could potentially not get any games. And if that's the case, where do you see the Cleveland Browns looking like this season?
I'm not certain when the decision will come down. I thought it would have happened by now, so it could be any day. I expect it to happen before the season starts. That's for sure. But this has always been a very complicated situation, and I know people have tried to simplify it, and they've gotten caught up in the numbers of accusations being thrown around, and there's just too many elements of this that are just sketchy and shady, and just from his own behavior to the timing of the allegations to the team's involvement in it, some of the lawyers. It's just a lot of stuff that is just hard to figure out, and ultimately you're talking about a he said, they said situation, and so I definitely believe he's going to be suspended. I mean, the league has learned from, previous situations, specifically Ray Rice, that if you go too light on this stuff, like, you're going to have, a lot more of a PR nightmare than what you want to deal with. So I think at least 6 games is going to be what he's facing. And I think the Browns have prepared themselves for that. And we'll see what happens after that. But I just feel like if you ask me to take a guess, I would bet that he's faced 2 grand juries. The criminal part of this did not proceed past that. The civil case has now been settled. I think for almost 3 or 4 of them, whatever. Yeah, and 4. So I don't even know how much access the investigators have had to those women now, because once they settle, it's pretty much they're not talking about this stuff anymore. I guarantee you that was part of the agreement. Well, so I just think the amount of information, I don't know if they can go beyond 6 games.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, and we've talked about over the last month or so that with what the NFL presented, which out of they initially were talking about do 12, then it got down to 5, then it became 4, and with the reports that Florio and Jacina Anderson came out with saying that they admitted that there was no force, no coercion, none of that type of stuff, no stuff on Deshaun's part, and then the fact that they was going to be asking for an unprecedented year suspension or indefinite suspension, which again, if you're saying that he didn't do any force or coercion, it's kind of hard to see where you go with that. And then when you admit that they investigated Robert Kraft for stuff that was that they have video footage of, that he didn't get suspended for it, it's kind of hard that when you're asking a federal district judge, again, it'd be different if it was Roger Goodell was the one laying the suspension out, but because you're going with a former federal judge and you're giving her the power to do all this, I'm thinking that she's looking at the facts and everything that's involved and the briefings that they put in there. For me, it's still hard to see where he gets suspended at, but crazy things have happened. So, I think because I just think the league, you talk about wanting a year, that's more about PR,
optics.
Yeah,
that's about we want to show we don't agree with this, and so whatever goes beyond that, they're going to be okay. She decided it, but we wanted a year.
Yeah, but the only flip side is that anything other than 0 games, the league or the Players Association, they can appeal. So let's just say she gives them 2 games or 4 games. Well, if the NFL decides to appeal, Roger Goodell has the last word, and he can give them a year anyway. Then then you might look at trying to take that to federal court, but but that's the flip side. So for me, it's either got to be 0 or something to where the NFL is not. Maybe it is 6, maybe it is 8 games where they're not going to worry about appealing it, because I think if it's anything shorter than that, they're going to try to appeal it, and then the league is going to try to, hey, Goodell, blah blah blah. You got the final say so, where he can put a year out and then then let the chips fall where they may. But even if he's let's go 6, 8 games or whatever. Jacoby Brissett, looking at the schedule, they do have a tough first half schedule where I could easily see them going 4-4, 5-3. Deshaun comes back in week 9. Does he still have a chance to take this team to the playoffs? And if they make it to the playoffs with that roster, with the talent they got at running back, Maybe Amari Cooper is still that guy. And Njoku, they're paying him like he's a top 5 tight end. We got to wait and see. Myles Garrett, I think he was the second or third player in the Defensive Player of the Year award last year. You look at Denzel Ward. Where can this Cleveland Browns team be with Deshaun Watson at the helm before the end of the season?
Well, if he was there for a full season, I think him to win the division. I have a lot of respect for him as a player and his ability. And before he got suspended, you ask most NFL evaluators, they would have said he's a top 5 quarterback in this league.
Yeah.
So, and so that's why I feel like as much as Cleveland doesn't want him to have to sit for any games, this is a long-term play on their part to be able to say we got a quarterback who is, 25, 26 years old, who is super talented, who can play at the same level as the Mahomes or a Herbert or, Josh Allen, some of these other young guys. So, yeah, I think that if they're hanging around 500 and he comes in, they could easily be a playoff team. If you're talking about anything beyond that, it's a different story. But they have a great roster, and they were challenging for a playoff spot with Baker Mayfield playing with one arm and playing a horse.
Exactly.
And so, I think you're just going to be able to execute some stuff. It's a quarterback-friendly scheme, so it's easy to pick up. Brissett has won some games in this league. He's experienced, and they're good enough to run the football and play defense and just slug it out until they get the quarterback.
Jeff, have you decided on who's going to be your Super Bowl teams yet, or what? Or do we have to wait on that?
Well, I picked Buffalo on the AFC side of it. And so,
you're always just going with the win. Okay, I see. You just like the banks. Saying the market go up, the banks go up, and you taking the buy when it's dipping. I see what you're doing. Yeah. So why Buffalo? Seriously, I mean, I'm just
why?
Yeah,
why not?
I mean, what have they shown you?
What have they shown me?
Yeah, what have they shown you? I didn't stutter.
They won the AFC East the last 2 years. They came in here and played one of the best games. They were 15 seconds away from being the AFC Championship game. They got a quarterback who is as good as the one they got here in Kansas City. Their roster up and down is the best in the league. They almost, you could argue they almost have a single weakness on their team right now. This year that what they've built up, adding Von Miller, they've added a couple more receivers. I think O.J. Howard is a nice little weapon for them, bringing some depth and some difference, some more athleticism to the tight end position. They get Tre'Davious White back, who I think was a big loss for them when they got in the postseason. And so, yeah, you'd be hard pressed to find anybody who doesn't think Buffalo is on paper the best team in the league. Now, who they play in the NFC, I don't know, but
all right. Well, I'll take that. I'll take that bet. Then. So since you got Buffalo, and so you got Buffalo winning or just going?
Well, did we just make a bet? I think you have to actually offer it up first, right?
Okay. Well, no, I mean, we'll both be in Phoenix, so I will. First of all, it's always dinner, and so let's not make it seem like it's it's something new out of the ordinary. But it's dinner.
I mean, it's always me eating dinner on your tab. That's what it always is.
Okay. Well, first of all, you didn't do it this year, so it didn't happen. It didn't happen this year, so I and again, I told Patrick before, he made me look bad. Fell in the second half or what? So. He promised me it wasn't gonna happen again. So
you're not betting the Chiefs at all.
No. We going off of your picks.
Hey. Also, you get the feel.
We going off his
for a pick. You asked me to make a bet.
No, well, okay. Well, no, let's go and make the bet because you tricked me a couple years ago to where had the Chiefs going. Granted, I had the Chiefs going undefeated. I get that part. But I had the matchup, but the Chiefs lost. The Chiefs lost Super Bowl against Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. But the year before, he was like, you didn't pick. So we're gonna go off a Jeff's pick this year instead of my pick. So,
well, okay. Look, give me some time to feel good about that. You asked me,
okay.
You asked me who I think is gonna win it. Yeah, if you asked me to make a bet about it, that's a different story.
Okay, because trust me, now you know me, it wasn't looking good when the Chiefs were 3-4 last year. When they had 3-4 last year after that game against Tennessee, man, I was scared to show my face around Jeff. But let's see. Okay, so you got Buffalo. So you got Buffalo in the AFC. Oh, man. It's hard for man. And see, I know what you're gonna say. You got to go where your bread is buttered. But
don't do it.
You know what? See, no. Okay, hold on.
Yeah, you got some guidance over there. Yeah, you got some.
I know that's the, but you know what? Somehow the Chiefs can have a down year and still end up with home field advantage. You know, I mean, like had a down year last year. Came with. I'm gonna go with Kansas City, but my fallback is gonna be depending on how many games Deshaun Watson get. I still like Cleveland because I think especially with the fact that they dropped some receivers in camp this last week, they're gonna get a full. I think they're gonna get add a couple of veteran wide receivers, depending on how many games again he's suspended for. If he's suspended for 4 games, I think the sky's the limit for that team because I do like Deshaun with Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. Amari Cooper, he's not going to make the same mistakes that Baker Mayfield made. I think the pressure would end up being on Kevin Stefanski not blowing games because it's like you got Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson's not going to put that defense in a position where they're going to be out on the field a whole lot, making a lot of mistakes, turnovers and stuff like that. So I think that he helps that. I think he helps that team overall just by his presence in his decision making. So if he's suspended for 4 games or less, I like Cleveland, Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. I'm not gonna lie. I'm just not that big of a believer in Josh Allen. When it comes down to it, I just don't believe he's going to be that guy when it boils down to it. When the chips on the line, I just don't see it happening.
So the way he played last year in the playoff game, you don't think that showed anything?
No, because you know why? Because the Chiefs put themselves in that position, man. If Sir, no.
How he played.
Hold on. Jeff, we were there. We were in the press box. I mean, there were things because there were certain times where the Chiefs, like, instead of going for it instead of going for the first down, run the football, they decided to throw the ball on 3rd down when it was like 3rd and 1. They decided to pass the ball instead of run the football, extending the play so that way you don't give the team a chance to score or you miss a field goal and I think they end up having a turnover. Trust me, if you go back and watch that game, you will see a lot of question marks in the game that the Chiefs, you're like, really? That's what you did? And then that brought Buffalo back into the ball game.
The point you made was that Josh Allen is going to come up short. Facts. And what I was saying, how is that not evidence of him playing at a high level?
Because the Chiefs opened the door for him to play at a high level. I don't think that they do it this year again.
But it doesn't matter if he played at a high level or not. What they did, he did it, right?
Whatever, Jeff. Anyway, Jeff, we'll have this conversation again.
I was trying to side with Jeff, so I give me a free dinner without you, Derek.
That's like saying, Steph Curry got 43, but Boston was let him take the shots off. If they just blocked the shot, he would have got 43 in Game 4.
That don't make sense. But, hey, stop it, Jeff. But Jeff, look, NFL games finally take place beginning this week. You got the Hall of Fame game Thursday night, Jacksonville, Las Vegas. Who wins that game?
Who wins the game?
Yeah.
You asked me who wins the preseason game?
Hey, look, man, we have gone what 7 months, 5, 6, 7 months without football, man. It feels good to be able to make a pick for once on a football game.
Yeah, I think I'm going to watch it. Yeah, I don't even watch the games, let alone
I know, man.
To win them.
Well, I'm going to watch it because I'm probably going to gamble on it, so that's the only reason why I watch the stuff, man. Yeah. That's what helps. So.
I mean, I guess the Raiders. How about that? I think the Raiders to win the game.
Oh,
well, I don't even know who's going to be on the field at the end of the season.
I just need to know. I just need to know, is it going to be over under 32.5 points? Just give me the over, please.
Well,
I mean, that's like 17-16.
No idea.
Okay, that's like 17-16. So, all right. Well, look, Jeff, let people know where they can reach out to you on social media and where they can follow you and follow your work, please.
They can find me on Twitter. They can at Jeffrey Chadiha. They can find me on Instagram. They can find me at NFL.com. It's a unique name. Just say Jeffri. It's the only one's going to pop up. You have to put the last name in there.
That is true. Jeff, as always, thank you so much. And you are in Indianapolis this week or next week?
This coming week. I'll be there on Wednesday.
How many years is this for you covering the NFL?
I've covered it's the 26th year.
Damn. You know what, Jeff? I actually got you beat. This is going to be my 29th year covering the Chiefs.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I started back in
You get
1993.
paid to do it?
Well, I was interning at 103. Well, hell no, it was child labor laws. I don't think you could do it back then. I was 15, what was it, 50, 15 years old, covering the Chiefs for 103.3 KPRS under Max Sports Clay. That's when I got my first credentials covering the Chiefs way back then. Been covering them ever since. I didn't realize it until, I think D. Orlando Ledbetter talking about it was his 26th, 28th year. I was like, damn, I've been covering the Chiefs since 93. I was like, damn, I'm going on 30 years next year. I'm old. That's
what it means.
I know. Father time waits for no man. Jeff, as always, thank you so much, man. I know we'll wrap again soon and you'll talk more stuff, and I'll probably take a bet I shouldn't take against you. So be as a man.
Yeah, okay.
I know you like that. Well, hey, we'll be back. We'll take a brief time out. You're listening to The Ship with Darren Smith right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
This is Peter King of NBC Sports. You're listening to The Ship with Darren Smith on Sports Radio 810 WHB and ESPN Kansas City.
Dust off your cooker and fire up the grill for summer. Missing a few items to get your cook started? Well, head over to the Kansas City Barbecue Store, 119th and Strangline in Olathe. You can stock up on all your grilling supplies, name brand cookers, pellets, probes, knives, sauces, rubs, and competition quality meats are always in stock at the Kansas City Barbecue Store. Don't be afraid to go big on the grill this summer. Go see Dan and the team at the Kansas City Barbecue Store today.
Hi, Tyler Reed. ReedBuickGMC.com has over 200 Reed-certified pre-owned trucks, SUVs, and cars ready for delivery. The Carfax, up-to-date maintenance details, and market-based pricing are all at your fingertips. Photos, videos, and all the details you need to make a decision on your next vehicle. Visit ReedBuickGMC.com today or call now 800-291-9406 and shop with confidence. Reed Buick GMC is values-driven.
Kansas City's hometown sports station, Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Guys like Carlos Delrap, Justin Houston, watched some of their film when I first came in the league. So it's always a pleasure to kind of be around that type of guy. I appreciate the support from our fan base. I love you, KC. It's very encouraging to us to see how many people come out here and support us.
Listen to all the live press conferences from Chiefs training camp right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Hey, Kansas City, it's Brian Pringle with Victory Ford at the Legends in KCK. High gas prices got you down? Victory Ford has great gas mileage vehicles in stock. If it's a work truck you're looking for, we have you covered there too. New or used, we have the vehicle for you. No matter where you live, we have satisfied customers throughout Kansas City and beyond. So let us help you find your next car, truck, or SUV. At Victory Ford, we keep the golden rule at the forefront of everything we do. Stop by the Legends or online at victoryfordkc.com, where our first price is better than their last.
Dear Mainland, aloha. We've been hearing about all this multitasking you're up to. Texting while calling, while emailing. Maybe sometimes you take a little break and do just one thing. Allow me to demonstrate with a big wave from Kona Brewing. Single tasking. One life, right? Mahalo. Single task tonight with a big wave from Kona Brewing. Mahalo for drinking responsibly. Copyright 2021, Kona Brewing Company.
What you don't know about your home can cost you. Access to in-depth data is gold when buying or selling your home. With Ownly.com, you get the information the pros use. Real estate investors and agents would rather keep this to themselves. Unlike other real estate websites, Ownly.com delivers much more detailed information about a property. Knowledge is power. Need a home valuation? Get up to 3 with Ownly.com. Go for the gold. Visit Ownly.com. That's Ownlerly.com. Ownly.com.
Paid for by Ownerly.
Want to attend the WHB 100-year anniversary event? Your first chance is coming up Tuesday from 3:30 to 5:30 at Red Door Grill in Brookside. We'll be giving
Every day you pull into your garage and you see the same grungy concrete floor, probably with some staining and most likely some cracking. It's ugly. Your garage floor needs an upgrade from E-Tech. They use a process that's 4 times stronger than epoxy and has a 15-year residential warranty. E-Tech has great color combinations as well. I chose KC Sky and mine looks great. Get a free estimate today at etekcustomcoatings.com. Locally owned and operated.
This is Lee Steinberg of Steinberg Sports, and you're listening to The Ship with Darren Smith on Sports Radio 810, WHB, and ESPN Kansas City.
Welcome back to The Ship with Darren Smith here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Thanks once again to Jeff Chadiha. Still joined in studio by the one and only Tuck man himself, Jay Tuck. Tuck, before we get out of here, how did your podcast go last week? I know you did the big Cowboys thing last week.
Yeah, it went great. We got a great turnout. Salute to all my brothers who joined in. Grateful insight about the Dallas Cowboys camp coming up, man. So
I talked about crashing it, but you called in the next day. I called in the next day. You know what I'm saying? I had a lot of good questions actually because I'm a journalist. I had a lot of good questions, but I thought you did a good job. And like I said, I wanted to make sure that I did because I was going to call in. I was going to come in, but I was like, let my boy do his Shiloh and do his thing, and I know you gonna do another one. So then that way I knew we'd have time to just talk about it in depth as we did. So I'm glad that we did.
Yeah.
We were talking about it during the break, but I don't know. First of all, I have a warped sense of humor sometimes. Like I was at the George Strait concert last night.
Oh,
and I know, right?
Okay.
And I know, right? And
you know any George Strait songs, or you just went to just?
I was making money.
Okay.
So I had some people like, and I know they're probably listening, like, oh, you're on 8:10 a.m. and it was like Big D in the morning. So I was like, I don't know if I should really be using that slogan because people can take it in many different ways. You might say pause, and it's like, but I said, but I'll throw that phrase out there one time just because I know y'all gonna be listening. But when you look at some of the memes because we talked about Kyler Murray earlier, what was the funniest? And Blake, you can chime in. What was the funniest one? Because for me, the funniest one I saw Kyler Murray dealing with that homework clause was having his computer or whatever, and a mannequin with the glasses, and while he's in the bed sleep. So I mean, granted, I've never heard of this type of clause before, and I guess it doesn't violate the CBA clause, but was there one that caught your attention, man?
Yeah, there was another one that had like a little boy and his mom was like trying to tell him to do his homework on the tablet. He got mad and threw the tablet. And like so I was like, yeah, man. So, but I never heard that clause either. And it's just like it went so public. That's why a lot of people were shocked because it's like, all right, what's really going on in Arizona?
Well, and the bad thing is that it made both parties look bad because if you stop thinking about it, it makes Kyler mad because like. You're not doing your homework. You're not doing any studying, and look, trust and believe. Whatever happens after the first game between the Cardinals and the Chiefs, if the Chiefs get the better of them, 35-14 or something like that, not depending on what the over/under is. I hope they make it. But depending on what it is, people go back to say, well, how much study did you do, Kyler? How much did you do? How much did you? Because they're only asked for 4 hours out the week. Now, I have a problem with it.
To answer what we're talking about off cam, so we will get Hard Knocks on the Cardinals in season. So we'll see. We'll see if he's doing his homework.
Oh God!
Hold on, didn't they also take that back out now?
No. They did take it out back, okay. but the sheer fact that they did that they
had
put
it in
there
in the first place,
and I tell people it's based off of history because we talked about I think right after the Super Bowl where Larry Fitzgerald Sr. Talked about his leadership skills and stuff like that, and there was really no one out there to defend him. And so, and he said this week after meeting with the media, well, I find it disrespectful because I couldn't have gotten this far without, hard work and studying. But I'm like, this is what you said. You said in the New York Times profile last year that you don't burn the midnight oil, looking at videotapes and stuff like that, that you feel like you and I forgot what movie it was where you just feel like you can see it before it comes, where you just let your talent, take over and you make the plays that you do. So, again,
it sounds like they were trying to Jamarcus Russell him. Give him a blank game film and see if he'd even watch it.
Hey man, I watched him. I listened to him. That is still so messed up, man.
That's jacked. He said, "Oh yeah, man, it was good. The film was good." They said, "Really?"
Really? I said the thing like, "Hey, bro, I didn't say you that disc, Jamarcus. So hey, look, American Gangster was on that DVD I sold. So if they didn't give it to you, that's because they fouled up. So man, that's bad. That's bad. But shout out to them, man. Look, we just got to watching some highlights of Tyreek Hill. He's doing the most out of Miami right now.
Yeah, he's showing out.
He's showing. And now I will say this: I am happy that they actually caught footage yesterday and they posted it. Tua Tagovailoa throwing a 65-yard quote unquote touchdown pass to Tyreek. I'm glad they did that, but I just need my guy to bring it down just a little bit, just a little bit. Let the season start.
If you got your money and moved to South Beach, you would be happy too.
Trust me, if I just got the money, I'll be fine. Now, if I moved to South Beach and got the money on top of it,
and so
that's something else.
I said, I understand what Tyreek doing.
My man got enough kids. If he had any kids and he lived in South Beach.
Yeah. But he showed his house on his YouTube, so I follow his YouTube channel. So he showed his new house in Miami, and it's not.
Well, he's had it for a year, so.
Was it new? He had it for a year.
Well, he bought it last year, so there was talk that he was always trying to figure out a way to get to Miami.
He had a KU rug in there, so all right, that's a rock chalk.
So yeah, okay. So what does his house look like? I mean, give us a description. Tell us about the crib.
I mean, it was nice, man. Multi levels. He has his podcast room. You know, the kids have major rooms. The pool was amazing. Like it's what you should be living like. So get that big contract one day, Darren. One day.
Yeah, but that's the case, man. I need to go to a state that ain't got no state tax.
That's
like
what
Florida.
he did. That's what he did. So I was like, yeah. So he's out there putting on a show during camp, hyping up the fans on the mic, gassing up Tua Tagovailoa like he's the most accurate quarterback. Like, all right, we get it. We get it, Tyreek. But it's going to hit mid-season where them L's start adding up, and he got to play against those Bills that Jeff mentioned, and it ain't going to be the same.
That's going to be a good matchup because whether Tre'Davious White comes back, and again, I don't know what his addition, and really it should be a great addition for someone like Jalen Waddle. You know what I mean? Because I want to see if his numbers peak because of Tyreek being on the other side, or what they look like if you got them both on the same side, because you can't double them both. So I mean, that's going to be I mean, those are going to be some good matchups, and I can't wait to see what difference Tyreek Hill brings to that offense. And again, you got Mike Gesicki, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on Tua Tagovailoa as well.
Yeah, they added Cedric Wilson and Connor Williams from the Cowboys roster last year as well, but. I'm not putting the Dolphins on my radar. But we're gonna have fun out there.
Hey, Cedric Wilson, former teammate of mine at Coffeyville Community College.
Hey, Coffeyville.
Cool cat.
To the Ville, man.
Cool cat.
Yeah,
Okay.
So actually, we got another player, Marquise Bell, that went to FAMU. He played from Coffeyville as well. So
nice. Well, let people know where they can reach out to you at, Jordan.
Yeah, you can find me on all social media platforms, JTuck151 and CFO Sports on YouTube.
All right, and of course, reach out to me, Darren Smith, WHB, Instagram, Twitter, and Darren Smith 816 on Facebook. We will be back next week right here on the ship, here on Sports Radio 810. WHB, we are out of here.